Hey, welcome back PetaPixel viewers. It is Chris Niccolls here, and I've got my hands on the brand new Leica M11-P. Let's take a deep dive. Now things are a little bit different for today's video. Our scheduling's been crazy. Jordan is stuck behind the computer editing like a madman. So my oldest son Kai is helping us out behind the camera today. Really appreciate his help. And when we're talking about the M11-P here, this is a variation of an M11. So I'm not gonna go through a full review, but I will talk about what's different from the other M11 models and then talk about an interesting feature which is pertinent to today's industry especially. Oh, and there's one more important thing that I think I should really point out. Today I'm using a 35mm lens, believe it or not. If you've seen our show before, you know that this is probably my least favorite focal length, and I'm challenging myself here to use it. Also, that's what Leica had to send us, but it's gonna be fun. We'll make the best of it. So like many of the Leica M cameras with the P designation that have come before, we've got some aesthetic changes here. Classic writing on top, just as M11-P, very small in the hot shoe, and we don't have the Leica red dot here. Instead, we got the black screw motif there. We've got this flat black finish. I mean, it's very discreet, and it's intended for, sort of nondescript street shooting. So control-wise, this is basically the exact same as we've seen on the other M11 bodies, and I can talk a bit about how I like to set it up. I still don't like the ISO controls on the far left, so I don't really use it there. I do like, though, that I can still customize a button press here with this control wheel to bring up ISO and then just turn the control dial very quickly to adjust it. I love that when I'm using manual ISO. Now, the bottom plate is exactly the same as we've seen on other M11s. I far prefer this more modern style without the removable plate. Quick and easy access to the battery, easy access to my SD card slot, UHS 2 right there under the battery, and we've got that USB-C port so we can charge the camera or connect it to the computer. I still do find that this is inconvenient though to have on the bottom of the plate, because if I've got a cable plugged in charging or whatever, I can't set the camera down on a table nicely or anything like that. The cable's always sticking out the bottom, but that's a minor annoyance. One thing I do love though, we now have upgraded internal memory storage, same as the M11 monochrome. We're now at 256 gigs of internal memory, and you can use it as your primary source, or you can use an SD card slot like I'm using today. It's fantastic just to always have that backup. Now, I've said it before, the Leica M11 platform is my favorite Leica that I've used to date. And first off, I just love that with Leica cameras, they're so simple. I mean, there's nothing between me and the photograph. A lot of the calculations are all being done up here. Everything on the camera is quite simple and straightforward, just manual controls. But Leica do give you a very thoughtful interface. I love that when you hit the menu button, you get a quick menu that comes up right away. I can adjust things with the touchscreen or by moving the control pad, hit the menu button a second time, and then I'm into the proper menu. I love that. The function button, how I like to set it up is I customize it for my film styles. This gives me easy access to go into the black and white modes. And I mean, Leica do have beautiful color profiles. It is a unique look to them, and I just really like the way it renders. Any customization is simple. Hold down a button for long enough and you can change what it does. I wish more manufacturers would do that. Lastly, I really like that in the menu, I can customize my favorite options. That way, the first page of my menu that comes up is the favorites that I want to change on a more regular basis. As well, if I've got multiple people using the camera or I just want to have different user profiles set up, I've got lots of those that I can customize. So I can have completely different settings under different user profiles. So to me, the M11-P is going to be aimed largely at street photographers and photojournalists, and I still have the same complaint that I have on the other M11 cameras, and that's the startup time. So I'm going to start it on now, and then I'll let you know when I can actually shoot. There we go. That's quite a delay. So what I find with M11s is, although it hurts the battery life a little bit, I leave them in sleep standby mode. That way they're instantly ready to shoot. If you're in any sort of situation on the street or photojournalism where you need to shoot quickly, you absolutely want to use that technique. Otherwise, you're stuck waiting. Okay, so is the M11-P essentially the same as the Leica M11 with some aesthetic changes and upgraded storage built in? Yeah, in a lot of ways it is, except for one big feature, and this is really the main change that we now have on the M11-P, and that is that Leica has now made this camera part of the C2PA. So in today's world, we have issues with things like AI editing, merging multiple photos, and just copyright infringement in general. And so I think joining this coalition is actually a really good move for a camera that might be used by photojournalists who need to show that their work hasn't been edited and altered in any way. So this is Leica's first camera that's now going to be using this C2PA information. And as far as I understand, it's the only camera that's been released so far that does use this, although Nikon is also registered as part of this coalition. Now this is very important because what it's going to do is effectively store all of the changes that are made to these files in the metadata. So of course it'll store copyright, who the artist was, when the photo was taken, where it was taken, that kind of stuff. But even when you take the file in and start to edit it with software, for example in Adobe Lightroom or Photoshop, any of those changes will also be stored. Now the idea is that any changes that are made to the file will actually be saved and stored in the metadata, and in order to make sure that they're not edited at a later date or that people try to delete it or alter it in some way, hash data and digital signatures are stored with each step. So you should be able to see exactly what was done to the file. As well, if you take a file off of, for example, a person's website and put it on a social media and post it, all of that data will be retained, and that way any copyright information should be stored safely. Whoever the original publisher was can still be maintained, and this should avoid a lot of issues going forward as far as how the photo's been edited or who it belongs to. Only time will tell if other manufacturers jump on board and start to really incorporate into this cameras, but given that we've got so much AI technology now and lots of photos getting exchanged all over social media platforms, largely without asking for permission, I think this does make a lot of sense to protect the artist's rights and the authenticity of the photos that are being created. Okay, so who should buy the Leica M11-P? Well, first off, if you're looking at an M11 for the first time and you know that you want to have color capability, it's either this or the P model. I mean, really, the aesthetic is nice, absolutely. It's a sexy looking camera. You might really like that discreetness, but you know, a piece of black tape will cover up a Leica red dot as easily as just buying it without. I think the real reason to get this is because you want that authenticity protection in your metadata. Otherwise, the upgraded memory is nice. 256 gigs of storage is great, but I do still feel like you're probably going to use SD cards anyways, and SD card memory is cheap, so that's not as big as an advantage as I would normally think it is. I mean, certainly if I already had a Leica M11 original, I don't think the P model would be worth upgrading to in any way. But if I was a working professional, a wedding photographer, a photojournalist, a street photographer, somewhere where I want to either sell my work or use it for newsworthy purposes, in that regard, then that absolutely could make a lot of sense, especially if you're worried about protecting your own copyright and that kind of stuff going through in the future. Anyways, let us know what you think about this. I mean, this is pretty much one of the first cameras that's going to feature this kind of authenticity protection. So let us know what you think about that in the comments below. We'd appreciate your feedback on that. Definitely listen to the podcast. It's on this exact same YouTube channel, or you can listen to it on all your favorite podcasting apps. Just look for the PetaPixel podcast. We answer comments on the podcast as well all throughout. Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe to the channel while you're there. Big thanks to my son Kai for helping out in today's video, and we'll see you soon with more episodes from PetaPixel.